Hello my fellow hunters, this video is additional to the last uploaded Teostras causal build, and I gone a little bit more into deep. I just want to tell you that the TPS data I told you in the last video are maybe not 100% correct, and I'm gonna explain you how exactly the blast calculation is working. I've made a little mistake. So at the end there is no huge difference, but just for those who are interested in the math, I'm gonna explain to you. So the first thing we're gonna do is we go to filters and filter for the blast weapons. Select OK, and now you can here see some blast weapons. And the first thing, if you're gonna try out a build, you have to calculate the damage without active blast status, and you can see the Teostras causal does 87.65 TPS without any blast. So that was correct. But now these two lines are not correct. So I go to filter and unfilter the Rampage slicer. So we only have the Teostras causal. And now we're gonna, So the thing I calculated in the last video was this one. I got to the status calculator. I calculated for 44 status attack, like I mentioned you already. The reason was that Teostras causal has elemental file, and so we can choose a higher status attack. The Teostras causal has 36 blast attack without any blast boost, and we're gonna multiply that with 1.45, so you can see it's 52.2. So we can make the average of 52 plus 36, it's 88, divided into 2, it's 44. So we can type in our status calculator 44. We are using all the old values we have here. So the status build up is still the same. It is 2 of 4, and I have tested them at the monsters. The most monsters has level 2 damage. So level 1 is only 120, I think, and level 2 is 144. There are also some monsters where you can reach about 200 blast procs, but I maybe calculated that later. If you're interested in this, you can write me in the comments. So the next thing is, we have elemental file, or all in all a switch X, and if we're in empty state, we do file bursts, and this file bursts also count as additional hits. So I calculated this for the rapid morph combo. I think you know it. And if your switch X isn't amped, you do an average 1.1 hits per second. And the next thing is, if your switch X is amped, you're doing the double amount of hits, because you maybe know from Honey Hunter, also for elemental switch X and other stuff, that the file burst you gain additional from the X in Monster in the Rise for the first time, and also in the switch and the sword mode you gain also the additional file burst, which doubles the amount of hits. So the next tricky thing is that your switch X is not 100% amped. And so the things we're gonna do is we go to my Fox SA calculator, and we are only interested in these two cells, file type and power prolonger. You can see it here. Okay. So the first thing we're gonna type in is for the Teostras causal. This switch X has an elemental file. So we go here. Let's give me a second. I want to make this a little bit more bigger for all the mobile users. So, okay. We go to file type. You can see it here. And now enable the elemental file we have on the Teostras causal. Now you can see the time to get amped is 9.4 seconds. And the next thing we're gonna do is we add our levels of power prolonger, and it's 0. So we type in 0, and you can see here the values changes. For instance, if we're using power prolonger level 3, the amp uptime is 91%, but we have no power prolonger on this build, so the amp uptime is only 0.83, so 83%. So we're gonna keep that 83% of the amp time in mind. And now we go to the calculator, to the status calculator. I'm gonna delete all that stuff, don't want to spoil you. So we have seen the amp uptime is 83% for the Teostras causal. So you can see we are doing, instead of 200 hits, 292 hits. So you can see maybe there's a lot more. And I also have calculated for the next thing you're gonna have to type in is the procs of the hits in cell 015. So we have 292 hits, and now we go to the table. Please don't use the table, this is only for the 44 status attack. So if we change the values, the entire table changes, but yes, I calculated this myself. So we're gonna enable this, and yes, we're gonna search where there is this 300, and we can see now here, okay, it's between 14 and 15. So the 14 proc is at the 281 hit, and the 15 proc is at the 318 hit. So it's between them. So we type in 14.5 because it's the middle of 14 and 15. So type in 14.5. So when we've done that 292 hits, we got about 14.5 proc. You can't get in-game really a half proc, but that is for better DPS calculation. And now you type in your proc damage. So for level 2 blast amount, weakness monsters, so you can check it in the hunter notes, it's 144. So I type in 144, and you can see our status DPS is 11.6. And now we go to my calculation table, and you can see here I added also for my calculation table new here the amp uptime. I'm gonna add these values time by time. So you can see here the old values are 9.6. You can see it here, and I calculated that it's 11.6. So you can see in the table it's 2 more. So instead of 97.25 we are dealing 99.25 DPS, 11.6, and instead of that 94.2 DPS we are dealing 96.2 DPS. So that is no guide or anything else, that was just for you informative how to calculate that plus damage, or you can also do that with other status attacks. Actually, maybe you can write down in the comments if you have a good Teostras causal build, because still after that calculation the damage output is just horrible in comparison to all the other switch axes, unfortunately. And maybe I'm gonna check some other switch axes whether they are better or not. Maybe the Basilgoy switch axe, but I think the Rampage switch axe for Blast is still a lot more better because Basilgoy switch axe has minus 15% affinity. Yes, and the Blast attack is also pretty low. So we're gonna enable all weapons, and yes, that's how to calculate correctly blast attack. And maybe we also gonna make it for the Rampage slice I've calculated here. So you can see the old calculation was 5.3, and we're now gonna check how good yes, the data is. So the first thing we're gonna check here is our amount of power prolonger and the power file. You can see here it's the power file, like I explained before, and power prolonger level 2. So we go to our dummy calculator, type in, like I already explained, you go to file type, choose the power file, and now go to power prolonger and choose the level 2, and you can see we have an amped uptime of 80%. So the next thing we're gonna do is we go to the status calculator. We have a status attack of 24 because we have 22 plus 10% extra. And now we're gonna add the amp uptime, it's 80. And now we're gonna check the procs when we have 288 hits made. So for the ramp up switch X, I'm using this table, and we have set 288.8, and you can check it is about here. Yes, you have 285, so you can use that 10 procs amount. So we go here in, type in 10 procs, and you can see now the status DPS is 8 instead of our 5.3. So that is 2.7 more. So we're gonna add that 8 and type in, sorry, yes, that was correct, and we're gonna add here plus 2.7, and now we have a value of 99.74. And now we're gonna compare these two switch X builds with the new calculation. So we're gonna filter by blast attack and sort by damage output. And we're gonna filter from the highest DPS output to the lowest. And now you can see here that the Rampage slicer does a tiny bit more damage than the Teostras Causal. You can see here Teostras Causal with 99.25 DPS, and the Rampage slicer is about 0.5% better with 99.74 DPS. Okay, actually I don't want to show you a new build. You can maybe click on this link to get the build. Also, you have seen here, sorry, you can see here the ramp up skill I have used, and yes, I also can add now that amp uptime of 80%, so we're gonna add it here, and you now can see the ramp up switch X is actually, for me personally, better than the Teostras Castle, but yes, you can, if you want, type in the favorite blast builds you have actually, and I'm gonna check the DPS. So see you next time. Sorry for that boring video. For me personally, it isn't boring, it's pretty interesting, but so sorry for all that people who get bored of them off.